Accessing peace. Existing without violence, with the ability to calmly resolve conflict. Downloading love. An overwhelming, deep, positive affection towards others. Activating liberty. Living your life as you see fit without infringing on the lives of others.
Welcome to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, online at fppradio.com. I am your host, Darryl W. Perry, the Liberty Penguin, the Wombat, the uncut cocaine of libertarianism. And it's the first day of spring. Happy equinox. Yeah, I know. Last week I said I don't celebrate made-up holidays. But the equinox is not a made-up holiday. If anything, the equinox should be New Year's. Why do I say that? You might be asking yourself. We already had New Year's on January 1st, and then, Darryl, you crazy SOB, you celebrated Chinese New Year not quite a month later, and now you're saying we need to have another New Year. Make up your mind. Well, I'll explain why I think that the vernal equinox, and yes, that's the actual name for it, the vernal equinox, I believe the vernal equinox should be the New Year because it's, that time of year to where it's halfway between the solstices, the summer solstice and the winter solstice. It's when things are coming back to life. And, yeah, I know here in New Hampshire we've still got some of that weird white fluffy stuff on the ground, but it's starting to all go away. It's in the 40s today, and it's supposed to be nice and, not wind up, getting too terribly cold anytime for the foreseeable future based on my limited glance at the weather forecast. But even if it does wind up, getting cold next week or sometime later this week, the vernal equinox, it just makes sense that the vernal equinox should be the New Year. Because, again, it's when, things start coming back to life, and should not a new year begin with new life or vice versa? That's why, again, I think the vernal equinox should be the New Year. So, Happy New Year! I might be the only person that celebrates the vernal equinox as the New Year. I know that the winter solstice is a big festival for certain people, and then other people celebrate the summer solstice, and I don't really know anybody that celebrates the autumnal equinox. There might be somebody, but this is, my New Year, and I know I've celebrated kind of the January 1st New Year, and the only reason I'll explain before I get into what I actually want to talk about. I'll explain why I celebrate Chinese New Year, and it has nothing to do with because I just want to celebrate an extra New Year. It has to do with the fact that I was actually born on Chinese New Year in 1978. So I celebrate it kind of to be like, a second birthday celebration because I then have an excuse. Like, if I weren't born on any kind of, specific celebration day, let's say that, Chinese New Year was February 5th instead of February 7th, the year I was born, then I would not celebrate 2 days after Chinese New Year. But because I was born on Chinese New Year, I've always found that fascinating, so I celebrate Chinese New Year. But I digress, and I don't know, maybe you do listen to hear me rant about weird random things. I don't really know why you listen. I know why some of you listen, but not all of you. So if you like hearing me rant about weird random things, send an email to I like hearing you rant about weird random things at fppradio.com. Believe me, the email will get to me. Trust me, I like to hear you rant about weird random things at fppradio.com. So, Darryl, what exactly did you want to talk about today? Well, this is something that I found interesting. And unlike a lot of the other articles that come from Archetypes and Lifehack, this comes from the Foundation for Economic Education. But Darryl, I thought you got away from politics, you might be asking yourself very vocally right now. Well, no, I still like to mix in the politics, but this is not a specifically political topic. And it's not specifically about economics, even though, again, it comes from FEE, the Foundation for Economic Education. What is it about? Well, it's about self-improvement, which is what I've been doing this podcast on for the last probably 2 years now. Speaking of, 2 years ago, I began my life-changing diet, and I weighed 309.5 pounds 2 years ago. I stepped on the scale this morning, 187.8 pounds. 1 year ago, I was not able to step on the scale, but the following day, March 21st last year, I was 184.8. So, yeah, if you're playing the home game, you might notice that the number from last year and the number from this year are very close together, whereas the number from 2 years ago is much higher. That's because, and I've mentioned this before, I lost about 145 pounds in 11 months. And I then wound up gaining about 35 pounds back. Since losing all the weight. I believe the highest that I got to was 207. I'm back down below 190 at 187.8 this morning. And about the time that I changed the diet is when I believe I'm remembering this correctly, is when I changed the focus of the podcast to go more towards a, self-help, self-improvement sort of focus, but still mix in the ideas of liberty. And this article is reasons, specifically 7 of them, reasons to make time to read. The article begins with a quote from Seneca: "Books are the training weights of the mind." Ooh, deep thought there, right? Let that sink in for a moment. Books are the training weights of the mind. We'll come back with those 7 reasons to read here on Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, online at fppradio.com.
You can support FPP Radio by joining the Fans program. Fans are friends, allies, and numerous supporters. Fans help FPP afford to produce more original content. You can join the Fans program for as little as $1 per month through Patreon and get perks like ad-free versions of FPP Radio News and Peace, Love, Liberty Radio. To learn more or to join the Fans program, visit fans.fppradio.com. That's fans.fppradio.com.
Cell 411 is a free app for Android and iOS that replaces government-controlled 911. Cell 411 allows you to preset a group of friends or private organizations to show up in any emergency. Cell 411 is a nightmare for the state because it proves their so-called services aren't needed. Cell 411 has had thousands of installs, and of course it's covered by the BIPCOT no government license. Cell 411 because your friends won't shoot you when you're in trouble. Without the government, who would build the emergency services? You and Cell 411. Get it today at getcell411.com. That's getcell411.com.
You're listening to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, online at fppradio.com.
Welcome back to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, online at fppradio.com. And during the break, I actually had a painting that stays on my ceiling. Yes, you heard that right. I have a painting on my ceiling. It wound up falling down. I don't know why, but it did. And I have moved that out of the way. It actually fell on me, and I was like, what just wound up hitting my hand? Luckily, it didn't hit my head. Luckily, the painting did not wind up getting damaged in any way. Although I do notice that one of the magnets that was holding it to the ceiling appears to have come off. And I'm guessing that I see 2 magnets stuck to the ceiling, so a couple of the magnets, the adhesive somehow came off. I will need to fix that later. But we're not talking about home improvement. We're talking about self-improvement. And there are some reasons that you should make time to read. Now, I don't know, because I've not read the entire article, I don't know if they mention audiobooks in here. I don't know if they specify, reading a physical book of, paper in hand, or if they count reading books through like an e-reader, but we will delve through this together. The most useful definition of technology, the author here writes, that I've heard is simply the ability to do more with less. I think of books and reading as technology. We only live one life, but through books we can gain the wisdom from thousands. When an author writes, rewrites, and edits, they are turning their words into a more perfect version of themselves. When you read, you get to spend time in a meditative state with a wise person's more perfect self. Books are the most undervalued and underappreciated technology in the world. And I want to stop here to say I completely agree. I remember when I was in elementary school, a long, long time ago, over 30 years ago, I loved to read. And that's because we got to pick what we would read. It was write a book report, pick the book. And I would have a hard time trying to figure out which book I wanted to write a report about. Not because I didn't want to read any of the books, but because I read so many good books, I didn't know which one I wanted to write the report about. And then somewhere along middle school, I believe, is when it turned into write a book report about this book that we tell you that you have to read. And I never really found any of the books interesting. The required reading, I didn't care for. I much preferred being able to select my own books. So I stopped reading for a long time because of rebellion. Because I didn't want to read what they wanted me to read. And because, there's a bunch of homework to do, I didn't really have time to do leisure reading. Now, I would go find, say, the Cliff Notes version of various things, and I would read the Cliff Notes to where I would know just enough to where I could wind up passing the test. And that's really not how you should go through life. You should not go through life reading the Cliff Notes versions of things just to be able to pass a test. Now, there's more in the introduction here, but again, just wanted to agree that books are, of all the technologies in the world, probably the most undervalued and underappreciated. So why should you read? What are the 7 reasons that you should make time to read? The author here begins, books and reading are the ultimate nootropic. You may have heard the term nootropic. It's some kind of thing to, it does something with your brain and helps you function at a higher level or something. The author here says, I apologize to all the modafinil lovers out there, but books have the most nootropics beat, or rather have most nootropics beat. Eventually, nootropics wear off. Meanwhile, reading permanently upgrades your mind, leaving you with a lifetime of benefits. The side effects of books have been tested by time, whereas the latest nootropics, not so much. When you get into the habit of taking nootropics, such as books, that is information, wisdom, etc., through a method like reading, the benefits compound. Books and reading, number 2 on the list, books and reading upgrade your mental operating system. The best books are written when the author is in a flow state. And you may have heard this term before, maybe you haven't. I first heard the term on an episode of the School of Greatness podcast a couple of weeks ago, where they were talking about the $4 trillion industry that very few people are talking about, and that is the altered conscious industry. Now, some of the things people are talking about, alcohol, tobacco, caffeine, people talk about those. Now, they don't talk about them a lot of times in the way that they alter one's consciousness, and that's probably because those are the legal ways to alter your consciousness. And I'm using the term legal there in the sense of, like governments. Yes, they're heavily regulated, they're taxed, but they're things that you generally will not wind up going to jail for possessing. Now, I know there are some states to where you can legally get high with cannabis under certain circumstances, and that's also in that $4 trillion industry of altering consciousness. And there are other ways that one can alter their consciousness in less than legal means, but I digress. So it was during that podcast that I first heard the term flow state. And it's, I forget the exact definition, but it's something to where, like you're in the zone. You've probably heard the term in the zone. Not in reference to AutoZone, but, like you're tuned in, you're focused, and everything is just running on all cylinders. That's basically the, easy way to define flow state. So books and reading upgrade your mental operating system. Again, because the best ones are written when the author is in a flow state. The author transmits their wisdom, muse, or insight with minimal ego. When a reader seeking wisdom moves through these words and enters their own flow state, magic happens. Stay tuned. There's more here on Peace, Love, Liberty Radio.
During the 2013 Porcupine Freedom Festival, Davi Barker presented an idea for a renegade psychological experiment. Since then, he has refined his idea and put his plan and research into writing. He explains, "We aim to show the world beyond a shadow of a doubt that power corrupts absolutely and corrupt authority deserves no obedience." Authoritarian Sociopathy is available from Amazon.com, all major bookstores, and now available as an audiobook. You can support FPP Radio by shopping online. Whether you're looking for precious metals, bitcoins, or books, you'll find that and more at shop.fppradio.com. Every purchase you make from one of my affiliates, like Namecheap, Spendabit, and Amazon at shop.fppradio.com helps fund FPP Radio. Or you can shop directly from FPP with Bitcoin in the Bitcoin store. That's shop.fppradio.com.
You're listening to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio with Darryl W. Perry. Online at fppradio.com.
Hey, welcome back to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio. Online at fppradio.com. We'll get back into the 7 reasons to pick up a book and read it. But first, I want to make sure that I tell you about a way that you can keep your money in the free market, assuming that you use free market money. You do promote Bitcoin and alternative currencies, virtual currencies, right? If so, you need Spendabit in your arsenal. Spendabit is the search engine for things you can buy with Bitcoin, and thanks to Shapeshift, you can use altcoins as well. Altcoins being other virtual currencies that are not Bitcoin. Spendabit aggregates millions of products from thousands of cryptocurrency-enabled merchants. Keep your money in the free economy. Spend a bit. Use my affiliate link, spendabit.fppradio.com. And if you're a Bitcoin-accepting merchant, ask about their merchant suite to reach even more customers. Spendabit.fppradio.com. Back to the article. And I'm going to skip the rest of what they have written under item number 2 about books and reading, upgrading your mind, specifically the getting you in the flow state, because the author was in the flow state most likely. Number 3, books and reading help you practice the art of sitting quietly in a room alone. Eric Hoffer was onto something when he said, "A man by himself is in bad company." This might be true initially, but we can grow ourselves out of this place. It takes hard work to become good company to ourselves, but if we read, pause for reflection, and continually improve ourselves, we can become good company to ourselves. By reading, we train and program our mind for what is arguably the greatest human challenge of our time. As Blaise Pascal said, all of humanity's problems stem from man's inability to sit quietly in a room alone. Which leads me to believe that they are talking about actually reading a book, not listening to an audiobook. But I digress and continue to reason number 4. Books and reading inspire you to gain direct experience. There are trade-offs for everything in life, but reading a lot of the best books isn't dangerous. The hunger for wisdom seems to be the only desire that we can satiate. There isn't a risk of overindulgence. After enough reading, we become charged with good ideas and courage to go out and explore the world. Once we get fueled up on enough wisdom, we become inspired to embark on our next hero's or heroine's journey. Binge watching an entire series on Netflix sometimes leads to hangover, whereas attempting to binge on books leads to an urge of wanting to venture back out into the world. Mixing the wisdom from books with the direct experience of an adventurous life is always rewarding. And something that I enjoy is when I'm traveling somewhere, specifically if I'm driving somewhere, I enjoy listening to a book on tape and then sort of imagining that I'm traveling with the characters. Do you ever do that? Or, if I go out for a jog or a run, generally I'll start listening to podcasts, but then when those run out, put that book on tape. And then I'm running and whatnot with the characters. And it does sort of put you on that adventure mode to where, you're running and, we've got to dodge the people from the mountains of the moon. We've got to run through the veil. We've got to escape the mountain. We've got to escape the hound. Things along those. Got to go find Catelyn's daughters. Whichever character and I'm speaking of Game of Thrones, obviously, because that's a very long set of audiobooks. I believe I have about 25 chapters left. Hopefully, I will finish them sometime soon so that I can go on to another audiobook. And I have a couple already in my queue. And for me, and this is just for me personally, and I know other people that this applies to as well, to where there's so much going on, you don't necessarily have time to sit down and read a book, but you can listen to the audiobook while doing other things. And again, it does sort of get you on that adventurous mindset. Number 5 of 7 reasons to make time to read. Books and reading force a meditative practice where you're forced to listen to the thoughts of a wise person. The more we read and spend time with a book, the more we practice mindfulness and meditation. And we've previously discussed several times some of the benefits of meditation. Reading helps teach us patience, calmness, and builds our ability to focus deeply on a single thing for an extended period of time. Books and reading allow you to strategically isolate yourself from a sometimes sick culture. Terence McKenna says, sanity in this culture requires a certain amount of alienation. Books and reading are one of the last societally acceptable reasons for being alone. If you need respite from society, there's no better strategic isolation than in a book. Books help keep us safe from the crowd. And there's one more reason. Stay tuned to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio.
Hey, this is Michael Dean from the Freedom Fiends radio show. I've been working with computer programmer Derek Slopey to create Fiend Phone. I'm using Fiend Phone right now to talk with and record one of my co-hosts in real time. Take it, Davi.
Hey, this is Davi Barker, and I'm 1,000 miles away from Michael, but we sound like we're in the same room.
We sure do, Davi. So, Davi, please tell the nice people more about Fiend Phone.
Fiend Phone is free, open-source software that opens up a global world of possibilities for collaborative, high-quality remote voice media production, and I'm digging it.
People can try the Windows beta version of Fiend Phone right now at fiendphone.com. But we're also raising money to vastly improve Fiend Phone and vastly improve independent talk media worldwide.
So go to fiendphone.com to help out. Who will build the audio roads? We will, with your help.
That's fiendphone.com. FEENPHONE.com. Foxtrot, Echo, November, phone.com.
Fiend Phone. I never knew remote audio could be this good.
This is Paige Peterson from MaidSafe, and you're listening to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio with Darryl W. Perry.
Welcome back to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, online at fppradio.com. Going through the 7 reasons to pick up a book and read on the vernal equinox episode of Peace, Love, Liberty Radio. Books and reading are an anti-fragile vehicle for delivery of truth. Throughout history, books have given artists, masters, and philosophers an anti-fragile vehicle to place truth. So what do I mean by this? The author of this article writes, well, there are many people who hate to think. When we hear something wise, they react viscerally or even attack the person that brought them the truth. Many in society hate the idea of pursuing truth. As Strauss proposed, the best secrets are often hidden inside stories. Most creatives know this to be true and know that the only way to deliver truth in a palatable way that can survive attack is a book. The most entertaining, or rather the more entertaining the narrative or parable, the more readers will tolerate new ideas. Because the book is able to be sold, it helps these ideas survive attack and gives the author a chance to capture a small amount of value from his or her ideas. There's definitely more written here that I do not have time to get into, but I've also heard that if you want to tell people the truth, make them laugh, otherwise they'll kill you. And that is specifically in regards to, a lot of times the comedians tell more truth than some of the politicians, actually most of the politicians and pretty much all of the newsmen, because they can do so in a way that it gets you to think while also getting you to enjoy yourself. Now, I want to, before I end the show, tell you about a new book that is available beginning today. Not yet on Amazon, should be by the end of the week. It is available currently for Bitcoin through the Bitcoin store of Free Press Publications. Yes, you can also pay with altcoins. I'm talking about the book Dear Society, written by the Cloudwalker. The Cloudwalker was born into a devastating world and raised among the crowd. He assumes a new identity and begins the unrelenting quest for truth. In this epic journey, he discovers dark secrets about aspects of his previous life that he once trusted. Through his journal, Dear Society, he shares both the traumatic hardships and the eternal beauties of his experience. Again, available from the FPP Bitcoin store, soon to be available on Amazon in paperback, already available as an ebook. And don't forget, I answer your questions every Friday. Send those over AMA@FPPradio.com.
The podcasts of FPP Radio are licensed under Copy Heart. We believe that copying is a form of flattery and do not abide by the copyright laws. Those laws serve to restrict the flow of ideas which no one can really own. Copying is an act of love. Love is not subject to law. If you enjoy the show, consider joining the Fans program and get perks like ad-free versions of Peace, Love, Liberty Radio and FPP Radio News, and also get a copy of the monthly newspaper FPP News. To learn more or to join the Fans program, visit fans.fppradio.com.